In this video, I'm going to break down exactly how you can go from being stuck at around 18, 20, even 22% body fat and get completely dialed in, guys. Now, the reason why I think that this is going to be super valuable is this is actually where a lot of guys get pretty stuck with their body. And it's kind of in that position where you might not necessarily feel like you're completely out of shape. And there's probably some people and guys that you see that might be carrying more body fat than you, but even stuck at around 20%, 80, it's not a place where you're going to feel your best. You're still not going to be in the shape that you probably want to be in. And you're probably still going to see a bunch of guys that you feel like are leaner, more athletic, and more ripped. And it's a place that a lot of guys can end up spending a lot of their life in, where they're kind of in okay shape, they're average, but they're just not in that great shape. And it's something that really keeps guys stuck for a long time unless you really understand what's required to go and take your physique to the next level. And guys, I'm going to break down exactly how you can go from this kind of 20% region and get yourself down to around the 12% mark, which I think is a really good range for most guys to try and aim for. Now, this is kind of that position where you still kind of have the unwanted belly fat. It's still pretty noticeable. You still have, you know, kind of the love handles, the man boobs. You still have body fat kind of all around that you just don't really like. Okay, you're not necessarily completely out of shape, but you're just definitely not where you want to be. And even when you're stuck in this position, guys, of being at around the 20% mark, you kind of still aren't in the most optimal ranges when it comes to certain things. You know, your testosterone's probably not going to be in the best place. It could definitely be higher. Being around that body fat is not an optimal place to have testosterone, which, as we know, is a huge hormone when it comes to feeling good, libido, energy for a guy, you know, drive in general, strength, muscle, everything. So it's important to try and optimize that. Your energy levels are probably going to suck a little bit. They're certainly not going to be super high. Again, you know, you're just sat in a range where things just aren't going to be exciting. They're not going to be amazing. And guys, if we be really blunt, this is still the range where you're going to put yourself at a higher risk of heart health and, you know, complications potentially with your health longer term, especially if you are creeping above 20% and you're actually closer to maybe 25, even 30, 35. Yeah, we know that that is not a place where we should be spending a lot of our time if we are serious about improving our health and being on this planet for as long as possible. So this is why it's important to try and shift from this and actually just fully reach your full potential, guys. You know, you shouldn't just be stuck in a place where maybe things are okay, it's all right, you're not in terrible shape. Why would you not want to be in the best possible shape if you could be, right? We only live on this planet once. If we could be in amazing shape, be in really good shape, why would we not want to do that? It's literally like, should be one of the most important things, that you see your body every single day. You live in your body, right? That should be something that you should be serious about really wanting to change, right? You don't want to constantly be reminded of how you're not disciplined enough to get in great shape, and how there's guys out there that are in better shape than you because you haven't got the discipline and the drive, maybe the knowledge to be able to get there. So that's why it's so important to really push through this stage. And I believe that 12% is such a good target to aim for, guys, because anywhere between kind of 12, you know, even 15%, which is possibly a little bit more maintainable. 12 should be the initial target, if not leaner. But obviously, as you start to kind of maintain more, you can maybe push a little bit higher body fat. But the reason why I think this works really well is because it's not extreme. It's not unsustainable, right? As soon as we start going into like the more kind of single digits of body fat, obviously that's a place that no guy really needs to be. You're going to feel that crap. That's where your testosterone's actually going to tank on the other side. You're not going to feel that great. It's just unnecessary, right? But I think around 12 to 15% is actually a place that I feel that most guys can maintain. Of course, you still have to be disciplined and live a good lifestyle. But I believe you can actually maintain that position pretty comfortably without having to put a massive amount of effort in when you've done the job properly and you've gone through the right phases and you've done the work. But it's also a place where like you just look good. Like being at around 12 to 15% body fat, guys, is like you still have visible abs, you're still lean, you've got that nice athletic look. It's not like the super lean that actually sometimes doesn't even look really any more attractive. Like I actually think some guys look better carrying a little bit more body fat, dependent obviously on you know, on the person and the lifestyle that they live. But I actually think that kind of putting yourself in that range of around 12-50%, it just means that, you know, you wear your clothes, you look great. You probably got the bicep vein. You probably got that nice lean look that when you put a t-shirt on, it looks tight in the right places. Your pecs are kind of showing nicely. But also when you take your shirt off, it's not like you've still got the body fat there, which is what a lot of guys kind of try and put down to bulking, right? You've still got the lean look. You've still got abs there. You take your shirt off, people are like, wow, yeah, this guy clearly looks after himself, clearly stays in good shape. And around that 12-15% range, again, this is probably where you actually, you still feel good. Like your libido, your testosterone is still going to be super high. And in general, I just feel like you can maintain this on a decent amount of calories and you can live a really, really good lifestyle without having to put too much effort in. Whereas if you're trying to maintain 10% body fat or anything leaner than that, it's like it can be like a full-time job, guys. You know, there's a lot of things that are required. You've got to be very, very focused around your activity every day, very focused around your nutrition. And it's just one of those things where it's a bit of a trade-off involved, right? If you really want to be in that position, you want to be super elite shape all year round, then there's a little bit more required. But to sit in that range of a nice 12-15%, which for a lot of busy guys that have got families, that have got things going on in their life, it's a fantastic range to sit in. And that's why pushing past the 20%, you know, the 22 and getting stuck there and getting towards this 12% mark is so worth it, in my opinion, because once you're there, I do believe this is something that can be maintained all around. And this is the goal for most of our clients. Okay, we don't really work with guys that want to get super shredded. You know, we got the old guy that comes in that gets absolutely shredded for a photo shoot and looks amazing, but they probably still end up maintaining their physique on more food and obviously higher amounts of body fat once they've gone through the reverse diet. So the type of guys that we work with, that are majority in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, we get them to the kind of 12-15%, possibly even a little bit leaner at the start. We help them maintain, build, and stay at the 12-15% where they can actually live in a good lifestyle, enjoy how they look, but obviously maintain a respectably amazing physique that most guys probably want to have and struggle to achieve. So in terms of the time frame on this, firstly, guys, let's break this down right from the get-go. You have to be realistic, okay? You are not going to reach this goal in 4 weeks. It's not even probably something you're going to reach in 8 weeks, okay? If you're starting at around 10% body fat, 12%, 20% body fat, you're probably looking at least 12 weeks to really get yourself dialed in and get to around that 10 to 12% mark, okay? A lot of guys, it is going to be around 12 to 16 weeks to reach that position. And that would require, again, a good approach, like being very disciplined, okay? Not having constant weekends and cheat meals and, you know, falling off every single weekend. That would be right, pretty dialed in across 12 to 16 weeks to be able to get to that position, okay? Longer if you're inconsistent, right? If you are falling off every weekend, it could take you 6 months. And there's no issue with that. For some people, they don't mind spending a little bit longer in a dieting phase, you know, going at their own pace. Personally, I would prefer to just get in, get out. I prefer to just do it quickly so I can maintain and get to, you know, more of a fun position faster. But obviously, whatever works. But you need to understand, this is not just going to be a quick throw the kitchen sink at it for 4 weeks. You might drop a bit of body fat in that 4 weeks. You might also lose some muscle, which isn't going to help your goal of achieving that level of body fat if we're losing muscle mass at the same time. So the biggest mistake that I see is guys often rush, they often fall off, and they don't realize this is an actual process, okay? This is gonna take time. And if you can't map out at least 12 to 16 weeks to go through this, there's probably not even any point in starting, okay? And that doesn't even take into account the reverse diet and the build and probably what the most vital phase is afterwards to make sure that you fully maintain it. So the time frame and understanding the time frame and being completely aware of that at the start and the clarity, it's super important, guys, okay? Then we go into what I believe to be the real vital, critical, most important things about this whole process, which is going to be nutrition. Of course, we know how important nutrition is when it comes to getting in amazing shape. So what is it that's so important? What are the kind of variables? What are the metrics that are going to drive progress the fastest? I'm going to keep this really simple, guys, because honestly, it is really simple. And it is pretty much two main things that you need to be super aware of and super consistent with every single day. And the first one is a calorie target. Calories are what dictate your weight. They are literally what control whether we lose weight or gain weight or maintain our weight. So if you don't know how many calories you're consuming every single day, you don't have predictable progress. You have no knowledge as to whether you're moving forward or not. Okay, you might be in a calorie deficit some days, you might not be other days. You're just not going to move at a very fast pace, and it doesn't allow for any kind of predictable progress, which I believe is really important if you want to stay motivated and understand where you're at with things. The calorie target is super important. How do we work this out? Multiple calculators. I will leave our FitLab calculator below. You can use that. It will punch you some numbers up. It will tell you roughly where to start. This is always going to be a starting point, okay? You get the number that you think is the most accurate based off your lifestyle, your gender, your weight, your height, all these kind of things. Once you've got that, your activity levels, you can then start with that number and obviously see if you're losing body fat on that. If you're losing it at too much of a fast rate, you can probably put the calories up a little bit. If it's not really moving much, you can bring them down a little bit. I often keep it very simple with clients. I just use very simply what their body weight is in pounds, and I try and figure out around 10 to 12 times that number to get a rough estimate with their calorie target. There's a few other things that we take into account, like their job and their activity levels, their age, but roughly around that region seems to work really well. So for example, if a guy is about 200 pounds, I would often start them at around about 2,000 to 2,200 calories per day, as I feel like this is a good place to start. The second is the protein target, guys. Now, we don't just want to lose weight, we want to lose fat, okay? If we're not clear on how much protein that we are consuming every single day, the chances are that we are probably going to end up losing some muscle, okay? Muscle is only going to be kept if our protein is hit consistently. Now, we need to be making sure that we hit probably at least 1 gram of protein per pound of our body weight, right? And if that feels like a lot and you are quite a big guy at the start, focus on your goal weight, right? So if you're a 200-pound goal, 220-pound guy, and you're like, 220 grams of protein seems like a lot of protein, focus on 180 grams of protein, because that might be the target you're trying to work towards, right? 180 pounds is your goal for fat loss. So you need to be consistent with that number. You track daily, 7 days per week, weekends count, okay? And if you're guessing, you will stay stuck. These are like the most important KPIs, okay, when it comes to fat loss: calories and protein every single day. Now, of course, we can start looking into, your fats and your carbs and all these kind of things. They are important, of course. You should be aiming towards around 25% of your intake coming from your fats. The rest should probably be made up by your carbohydrates. You should be eating relatively clean foods. Of course you should, guys. We're adults. We know that we shouldn't be, living off curries and chips and takeaways and all these crappy foods. We should be eating quality, clean foods. But even if you're eating clean foods and you don't know how many calories or protein you're consuming every day, you're still not going to get good results. So these are still your most important numbers. You just need to try and build out a structure with your food that allows you to hit your calories and your protein every day whilst still having a little bit of fun at the same time. And this is really, really key, because if you try and be super clean and your food is just completely boring, you don't like it, and it doesn't fit your lifestyle, you're not going to stick to this for 12 to 16 weeks. You'll give up in a month, even if you get that far. So the nutrition has to be something you can stick to. It has to be something that you enjoy enough to be able to maintain it whilst having, maybe a bit more flexibility around the weekend. But you still cannot get away from the absolute fundamentals of nailing the calories and nailing your protein every day consistently, so that you can keep losing body fat and reach this 12% mark to get lean. Then we move into the training, guys. So why is this so important, and what is the most important aspect of training that you should be focusing on? And it is going to be lifting weight, okay? The cardio is not going to get you a lean, athletic body. It's not going to get you to 12%. If you are just doing cardio, you guys, you can still be in a calorie deficit, but your body fat is probably not going to change that much, right? You might drop a little bit of body fat percentage-wise, but not a lot, because if you think about it, if we are losing muscle mass and losing fat, the percentage of our body fat is not going to change that much, right? Like, you could be 20% body fat at the start and you could lose 10 kilos, but you might still be 20% body fat because you just dropped a bunch of muscle. So you're not actually recompositioning your physique. You're just essentially becoming skinny fat. And this is why lifting weights is so important, right? Guys are literally trying to do loads of cardio and loads of running, thinking that's going to burn the belly fat, when actually it doesn't burn the belly fat at all. And in actual fact, that can have the opposite effect of driving your hunger up, driving fatigue up, and then making it way easier to eat over the calories and overconsume. So you've got to get this under control into the basics. Most guys over 30, they start losing muscle. I say most guys, pretty much every guy. This is just our physiology. Over 30, over 40, over 50, we are dropping muscle mass if we are not protecting it, which is why weight training becomes so important, and it is not something you can skip out on. You should be lifting weights at least 3 or 4 times per week and following a structured program, focusing on progression, intensity, and making sure that you can stay consistent with it over time. And that is what is going to drive up muscle mass and not just get you looking thin, it's going to let you looking lean, athletic, and jacked. And over time, this is how your body composition is going to improve. So the deficit in your nutrition is going to take care of the weight loss, it's going to take care of the fat loss, it's going to see the scales come down. And then the gym work of you lifting 3 or 4 times per week, that is going to take care of you maintaining levels of muscle mass, building muscle mass, to make sure that your physique looks better. If you don't lift weights, your physique will look worse at the end, okay? I'm going to say that again. If you do not lift weights, your physique will probably look worse at the end, okay? You're going to become skinny fat. Building muscle is a longer process, so you're going to have to get that muscle mass back that you probably lost, and it's just not something that I would let any guy fall into, because it's not going to get you long-term results. When you've got more muscle, guys, it means that maintaining afterwards is so much easier because your metabolism is working so much better. You are able to eat more food whilst maintaining your weight. So look, in terms of the type of training that you do, I'm not going to go through that now. I think that that's probably another video in itself. I recommend that most guys, whether you're starting out or whether you are now a bit more experienced, if you are training 3 to 4 times per week, you should be focusing on either full body training sessions to get the most bang for your buck in the gym. You should be doing possibly upper, lower, upper, something like that if you are really more focused around training your upper body, or literally, you know, an upper, lower push pull split with a 4-day split, or something like upper, lower. Something that allows you to hit multiple muscle groups throughout the week. You should not be doing chest days, back days, shoulder days, whatever, because I don't believe that is the best way that a busy guy can train to get the best results. Unless you are spending like 6-7 days per week in the gym, which you shouldn't be, those kind of bro splits, they typically don't work. Okay, then we move on to the next step, guys, and this is quite literally steps. This is daily movement, right? Now, this is so important. It's actually extremely underrated because a lot of guys don't realize that just by simply moving more, you will make the process of fat loss so much easier, okay? By doing 10,000 steps per day, if you're roughly a 90 kilo guy, you're probably gonna burn on average nearly an extra 500 calories per day. 500 calories across an entire week is 3,500, which is 1 pound of body fat. So just by simply moving a little bit more every day, you could burn an extra pound of body fat from being more active. You can spend all the time doing the cardio if you want, but it doesn't have as greater effect of just moving more throughout the day. And this is something that I believe a lot of guys can actually do if they just try and find more pockets throughout the day where they can get up and they can go for a walk and they can try and be a little bit more active. And once you build that lifestyle around moving more and being more active, it just becomes so much easier because it's not then something you have to think and plan and doing cardio every day is effort, right? It becomes effort, it becomes a burden. Look, for some people it works, but it's not something that I believe is as sustainable as I'm just going to get my steps in every day and make sure that I move and stay on my 10,000 steps and be religious with hitting that. That is something I believe most guys can really maintain. It makes fat loss easier, it increases calorie burn, and it makes maintaining fat loss much easier as well, which is super important. You know, you don't want to rely on just starving yourself and trying to eat super low calories, and you don't want to rely on excessive cardio because, again, that is not, I believe, something that's maintainable. And I don't even think that's something that's maintainable for that many guys for the time frame it actually takes to go from 20 to 12% body fat, because I still think for 4 months of trying to do those things, it's not sustainable. Most guys can't even get past 4 weeks. So focus on moving more, track your steps, be active, and that is a massive game changer, again, when it comes to reaching the target. And next up, guys, we've got to start looking at sleep and recovery. These things should not get missed out, okay? Poor sleep is going to mean slower fat loss, okay? Hormones are going to be worse off. Hunger is going to be much higher. Your performance, your energy levels are going to suck. You're not going to be as motivated to want to stick to it. You're just not going to want to adhere to the plan if you're tired and you've not had much sleep. Your overall ability to stick to things becomes incredibly low, becomes hard. It's difficult. So look, I know a lot of people have got different lifestyles, different jobs, different routines, responsibilities. It's not quite as simple as get 8 hours sleep. You just need to get the best amount of sleep that you can for your lifestyle. And if you can only get 6 hours of sleep per night, make sure it's a quality 6 hours of sleep. You shut off, proper sleep routine, no freaking Netflix and, on your phone scrolling before bed. Proper sleep routine, get the best quality 6 hours sleep you can. Keep the circadian rhythm nice and routine as possible. Go to bed time the same, get up time the same, and make it quality. And then that way you're going to get the best sleep and recovery as you can. Ideally, guys, we should be pushing towards 7 to 8 hours of sleep per day. I think that that's where most guys need to sit, but I understand that for some people it's more difficult. In terms of things are also going to benefit recovery, not drinking too much alcohol. I believe if you are trying to get to 12% body fat and you are a heavy drinker, you are probably going to make this very, very difficult and something that's probably going to be a little bit more of a challenge, okay? I think that a lot of guys stay stuck because they do drink too much, they are fully off plan at the weekends, and they just do not dial things in properly, okay? You can diet all week, drink heavily at the weekends, you're not going to make progress. You really need to pick one, guys. Either you want to drink heavily and that alcohol is a big part of your life, in which case I think you are generally going to struggle to reach those digits of body fat. I do. I don't think getting to 12%, if you're lower than that, is realistic if you are a heavy drinker and you drink most weekends. Of course, you can get away with having the old glass of wine, having a couple of beers, but if you drink heavily and you're like, oh, I have to have my alcohol, good luck, because it's going to be difficult for you to really reach the optimal, ranges of body fat, of health, of really where you want to get to with this. You really need to start looking at picking one. Otherwise, it is going to be a question of staying the same, okay? You're only ever as good as your weekends. If you cannot stay disciplined at the weekend, even for at least 12 to 16 weeks to get your body fat down, you're really going to struggle, okay? As I say, there is more flexibility that can be brought into a plan once you're in amazing shape, but you have to get there in the first place. And if you can't make sacrifices for 6 months and, you know, really dial those weekends in, it's going to be really difficult. Okay. I think that discipline is the most key and important trait when it comes to getting in amazing shape. Okay. Being disciplined is staying consistent. That is where most guys really fall. No cheat weekends, no guessing calories, no random training. Everything is required in terms of being structured, maintaining discipline. You don't need to be perfect, guys. You just need to be consistent. And that is the difference between you getting from 20% body fat to 12% body fat. It comes down to more discipline, more structure, and just making sure that you can be consistent for enough time to get to that position. Okay. Any guy can get there. There is literally no reason why you can't get yourself to the position that you might have seen a lot of other guys achieve, you know, having the lean athletic look, seeing the abs, seeing the six pack, looking great. There's no reason why you can't get there. A lot of this is down to self-belief and whether you genuinely believe that you can. You absolutely can get there, but it is going to require discipline, sacrifice, and a lot of consistency. And the most important thing, guys, I'm just going to cover is what actually happens after we get there. Okay, this is super important. This is not just about getting there. This is about how do we actually maintain this properly, because there is no point in going in through this process to get in great shape to then only go and gain the body fat back afterwards and go back to 20%. It is the work, like, to literally go from 20% body fat to 12% body fat back to 20% body fat. It's like the most demoralizing process. Yeah, a lot of guys go through this. They get in shape for a holiday, for a wedding, or for whatever, and then the next minute they're back up again. That is not what we want to hit. We want to hit, guys. We want to maintain this properly. So having an exit strategy mapped out properly and understanding what to do once you've gotten there is honestly probably the most important thing. And this is understanding how to increase your food once you've got to 12% body fat and how to then actually maintain this for the rest of your life, because the reverse diet you go through afterwards is what is really going to dictate whether you can maintain this, because you can't maintain being in calorie deficit. You know, you can't maintain certain things that you might have to do to get lean. There is going to be a point where we need to focus on what is actually maintainable. What steps can you maintain year round? How many calories is realistic for you to maintain on? And I believe that most guys can get their metabolism to the point where they can be consuming probably circa 2,800, 3,000 calories a day, just from literally weight training 3 or 4 days a week, being consistent with steps at around 10 to 12K, and, you know, just doing the basics really well. But it's a process of increasing the food afterwards. It's so important. And we do this very well with our clients. We don't just get them lean. We tell them, right, we need to go through this reverse diet next, which is going to allow us to maintain your physique on more calories. Once we've done that, you will be in a really good position where you're not only going to look good, but you're going to be able to understand how to maintain your physique and stay there for the rest of your life. Don't go through this process, guys, and you don't map out a full exit strategy and how to reverse diet. You are really going to struggle, and it is going to be probably one of the most demoralizing processes that you've gone through. I'm going to leave a link below of a video that I did basically breaking down exactly what reverse dieting looks like and how to do it. Go and check that out, as I think that will really help you. Apart from that, guys, hope you found this video super useful. I genuinely don't believe that most guys have a fat loss problem. They have a consistency problem. And if you can really fix that consistency of just doing the repetitive stuff daily and doing a lot of these things that I've spoken about today, which are maybe not the sexiest things in the world, but they work. If you can do them consistently and you can fix that, that is when this becomes super simple, and you will get your body to the 12, the 10, even the 15%, which is where you are going to look and feel so much better, feel more confident, and be in an amazing shape. So guys, I hope you found this video useful. Make sure you smash the like button, make sure you hit subscribe, make sure you hit the bell notification so you're notified every time I post, and I'll catch you in the next one.